BitGo went public on Thursday, marking the IPO of another closely watched crypto company. Shares jumped in their first day of trading, even though crypto prices have taken a major tumble over the past few months. Joining me now is Mike Belshe, co founder and CEO of BitGo. Mike, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Hey, Akash. Thank you for having me.
Well, congrats on the IPO. It's a big milestone for you and the company. I want to understand your calculus behind the decision to go public right now in this moment, because if you look at crypto markets, it's been a little bit of a bleak couple months, and but you weathered it and said, "No, we're going public," and the stock market seemed to have a good reaction to it. But why now?
Yeah, great question. Look, a lot of what we've done over the last, 12 years of our existence is make sure we're as transparent as we can possibly be as a company. That's meant, how do we audit our technology? How do we do our SOC audits? What insurance do we have? What regulatory background we have? And as you know, we've been constantly upgrading all of these parts. Most recently, we just moved to an OCC Federal National Bank charter. So this is all part of being ready for the world's largest financial institutions to become able to come into our space. And we think it's actually a really important unlock. So last year, 2025, tremendous regulatory unlock. All of a sudden, I'm here in New York right now, you know, major firms all up and down Manhattan, previously had been blocked from touching digital assets by way of, the regulatory landscape. And now all of a sudden they're in. So our TAM has literally doubled. Being a public company allows us to serve them. It's much more easy for them to be able to come in and do diligence on a company like us as a public company than previously as a private company. So it's just a continued evolution of what we've always done. And then lastly, in terms of the stock price, I mean, I do care about the stock price. I don't mean to say I don't, but this is a long-term view we have in the company. Look, we're building infrastructure. We think it's all about growth. I think if you look at the performance of the company over the last 12 years, we've raised less money than pretty much any of our competitors by a lot. We've got more market share than our competitors, and we think that our status, not just here in the U.S., which people are familiar with, but also, fully regulated in Europe and in the Middle East and in Singapore, so we can meet our clients where they are, and we think this is all poised for growth. So the stock price is where it's going to be. Being a public company actually shows to all of our clients our continued dedication to being completely transparent. Come and take a look at who BitGo is, what we do, see our books, see how we run it, and hopefully become clients.
I want to ask you about the decision to allocate a significant portion of your shares to individual investors and having them access them through brokerages like Robinhood. This was something that the Wall Street Journal had some good reporting on. What was the rationale here on that?
Look, I think ultimately it's, your stock, you're trying to get it out to a broad distribution. And the retail channels have changed over the years. To be honest, I don't think the IPO process is uh, fully adapted to what's possible here. I mean, we can go direct to retail through a whole bunch of channels. I was amazed and impressed at the quality of information that we got during the IPO process, about the retail investors and their interests. So, look, we think ultimately this brand, our company will have a big impact and interest to retail clients. I think we saw tremendous demand from the retail channels. Really proud that we put about 25% straight out into retail.
So let me ask you this: is that strategy for everyone? I mean, there's a clear connection here between well, clear, maybe not clear, but there's a seeming connection here between the individual investors and the idea that crypto has been very popular on some of these trading platforms like Robinhood. I mean, is allocating those shares or the distribution to individual investors, is that for every company? Do you think this will become more mainstream broadly, or is this just a crypto thing?
Look, I think retail deserves more credit. There's certainly a time, in history where, retail did not have as much information about the companies that they might be investing in, and it was difficult for them maybe to participate at the same level. Look, all the way back to GameStop a few years ago, it was very clear. Like the retail investors, while they can band together and do interesting things on their own, they are very educated in terms of what's going on with stock. So part of our world is we want to be transparent. We welcome that scrutiny wherever it come from. I think it's easier for traditional IPOs to have picked a small set, let's say, 200 various investors and then you can try to understand what their selling and buying patterns are going to be, and you can try to get more predicted stock output. I don't know if that's really meaningful other than for a short term. I mean, for the long term, we're going to build this. We're going to continue to distribute more stock out over time, just like every other company does. And a lot of that lands in retail at some point. Like you have to be a company that can handle, being directly connected to retail. Lastly, though, look, tokenized equities are coming.
I was just gonna ask you that there are crypto companies now that have tokenized your stock, and do you approve of that?
Well, they're able to do that actually without even talking to us. So, that's
Right,
fine.
right.
Do I approve
So
of it?
maybe you
Sure.
don't. But where do
Uh,
do you like it?
well, look, I think if you play out what's going to come next in terms of the technology adaptation with, tokenization, it gives an ability for an issuer like BitGo to have a direct relationship potentially with their equity holders. And, of course, this is something that's not new to crypto, but who are your shareholders matters. And can you give them incentives and can you work with them and actually bring them into the fold in a better way? There's perfectly uh, uh, great examples where this has happened before. Berkshire Hathaway does this as well, not in a technology way, but in a manual way. So imagine in the future that BitGo could have clients. They bring one share into a BitGo wallet. We know completely that they are a shareholder, and now we can address them in more interesting ways. So I think there's a lot of good, positive future coming for the retail folks out there that did participate in the BitGo IPO. Thank you. I hope most of you are understanding BitGo and really looking for the long term. And I would welcome every single one of you to go sign up for a BitGo account and check it out and see if
So
you don't like.
let me ask you a question here then on this, where you see IPOs going then. You've just gone through the IPO process through maybe not as traditional a process as it would have been maybe 10, 15 years ago, but still a pretty traditional IPO process.
Yeah.
What does the IPO of 15 years from now look like? I mean, what is your vision for how that process goes? I mean, how you end up raising the money, how the distribution works? Just talk future sense with me.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I think we've seen over the last 20 years, the US capital markets have fallen behind a little bit, right? Like we have fewer companies in the capital markets than we've had. And I think most of this comes down to we've made it really expensive for companies to hit the public bar. So that's unfortunate. I've heard Paul Atkins, the chair of the SEC, also laments that like we want more great companies trading on the US capital markets. They are the greatest capital markets in the world. Of course we want more. And so we have to find the right balance between regulatory and cost burden and companies out there. Technology is going to pave the way here. It's going to pave the way in terms of how we address those regulatory needs. It's going to pave the way in terms of new options to go public. The main thing about tokenization, in my opinion, is that it opens the door for innovation. So everything related to equities in the past has been tied up on a small number of now very established big company brands. So you recognize their names as broker dealers in the world, and you can't really innovate around it. But once you're able to take, tokenized equities, we basically have an open banking system for equities, and now we can start to see the innovation flourish around all kinds of different
So
applications.
the main hurdle that you see this overcoming is the cost of going public, the cost of going through the motions of an IPO.
Look, I'm not sure that we've really covered the costs very well. The U.S. has a few things which are complicated here. We did pay our attorneys a lot of money to do this process with us. Once you're a public company, your exposure is very different. You get a lot of warnings coming into the public world. Insurance goes through the roof because they know you're going to get sued. We live in a very litigious United States. Look, some of those things are not fixable just with technology. In terms of the mechanics of how you do this, of course, that gets better. But yes, look, securities have to be traded under the rules of the SEC, and that's the Exchange Act of 1933, Investors Act of 1940, all that kind of stuff. So that doesn't go away just because you add technology.
Right. Great. Well, Mike, I want to thank you for coming on. Congrats on the new listing, and we look forward to talking to you again soon. That is Mike Belshe, the co-founder and CEO of BitGo here on TITV.